Welcome to the Israel Illuminated channel. Today we will examine the topic, who are the 144,000 of the tribes of Israel? Before attempting to answer the question of who the 144,000 are in the book of Revelation, it is necessary to first address a foundational issue. Has God replaced Israel, or does he remain faithful to his covenant promises? If God has replaced Israel, then the promises made to the Jewish people would be void, raising serious questions about his covenant faithfulness. However, if God remains true to his word, as Scripture consistently affirms, then any interpretation of the 144,000 must take seriously the role of Israel and the Jewish people in God's redemptive plan. The identity of the 144,000 has long been debated, and despite careful study of the relevant passages, many have struggled to arrive at a unified understanding. The book of Revelation is filled with mysteries, some revealed, others concealed for a time, and the 144,000 appear to be one of those profound mysteries that invite deeper study. Generally, interpretations fall into two primary camps. Some argue that the 144,000 is a symbolic number representing the totality of true believers in Messiah, essentially the church. Others maintain that the number is literal, referring to a specific group of Jewish people who will be saved during the time of the Great Tribulation. While many variations exist, including fringe interpretations such as those once promoted by Jehovah's Witnesses, the central questions remain. Should the number be understood symbolically or literally? Does it refer to Jewish believers, Gentile believers, or both? And what is their role in the last days? The only explicit references to the 144,000 appear in Revelation chapters 7 and 14. In Revelation 7, 1-8, John describes a scene in which angels restrain judgment until a group of God's servants are sealed on their foreheads. The seal placed upon their foreheads carries further meaning when understood through the lens of Jewish tradition and Scripture. The Hebrew concept of a seal conveys the idea of marking, engraving, or setting apart. It is not merely a stamp of identification, but a declaration of belonging and purpose. This imagery echoes the priestly garments of Israel, where the high priest bore a golden plate on his forehead inscribed with "Holy unto the Lord," shown in Exodus 28:36. In a similar way, the 144,000 bear the name of God on their foreheads, marking them as consecrated servants. This priestly identity aligns with Israel's original calling. At Sinai, God declared that Israel was to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, revealed in Exodus 19:6. In Revelation 7, that calling reaches a climactic expression. The 144,000 are not merely preserved individuals. They are representatives of a restored priesthood, set apart to serve God during one of the most critical moments in human history. Revelation 7, 1-8 also clearly states that this group consists of 144,000 individuals drawn from the 12 tribes of Israel, with 12,000 from each tribe. This explicit tribal enumeration strongly suggests that the group is Jewish in identity. Also, how remarkable it is that among the 144,000 a sealed group from the tribe of Levi is revealed in Revelation 7:7, indicating that the Levitical priesthood will be restored. Immediately following this, in Revelation 7:9, John sees a great multitude from every nation, tribe, and language standing before the throne. The contrast between the numbered group from Israel and the uncountable multitude from the nations indicates two distinct groups. One specifically Jewish, the other are the Gentiles throughout the world. This distinction is crucial. The flow of the text does not blur Israel into the nations, but rather highlights both groups within God's redemptive plan. This supports the view that the 144,000 are not a symbolic representation of the church, but a distinct group within Israel. Revelation 14 provides further insight into their identity and role. Here, the 144,000 are seen standing with the Lamb on Mount Zion or the Temple Mount, bearing his name and the Father's name on their foreheads. They are described as those who follow the Lamb wherever he goes, who are morally pure, and who have been purchased from among men as firstfruits to God and to the Lamb. The term firstfruits is especially significant. In the Old Testament, firstfruits represent the initial portion of a larger harvest, offered to God as holy and set apart, shown in Leviticus 23. This suggests that the 144,000 are not the entirety of Israel's salvation, but rather the beginning of a much greater redemption yet to come. This interpretation aligns with Paul's words in Romans 11:25-27, where he speaks of a future moment when all Israel will be saved. Their description also emphasizes purity and devotion. They are portrayed as blameless, truthful, and wholly committed to the Lamb. In a world dominated by deception and rebellion, they stand out as a consecrated group, uniquely set apart for God's purposes. One of the more debated aspects of their identity is the fact that they are described as male and chaste. This raises the question, where are the women and children of Israel? A helpful answer may be found in the Old Testament pattern of numbering Israel. In Numbers 1, the nation is counted by its fighting men, males of military age. Yet this census represents the entire nation, including women and children. In a similar way, the 144,000 may represent Israel corporately through a specific group of men set apart for a unique role. This leads to the possibility that the 144,000 function as a kind of spiritual army, not necessarily military in a physical sense, but spiritually equipped and commissioned during a time of global upheaval. Their placement in Revelation 7, followed by the appearance of a vast multitude from the nations, suggests that they may serve as instruments through whom many come to faith during the tribulation. Further supporting this idea is the Old Testament pattern of a faithful remnant, preserved during times of judgment. The prophets repeatedly spoke of a remnant of Israel that God would preserve and restore, revealed in Isaiah 10:20-22, Micah 2:12, and Zephaniah 3:12-13. The 144,000 fit this pattern precisely, a sealed, protected group set apart during a time of divine judgment. Again, another powerful connection is found in Ezekiel 9, where the righteous are marked on their foreheads before judgment falls on Jerusalem. This act of sealing mirrors what we see in Revelation, reinforcing the continuity between the Old and New Testaments. The 144,000 are not a new concept, but rather the fulfillment of an established biblical pattern. Additionally, the structure of the number itself, 144,000, may carry symbolic weight. It is the product of 12 tribes multiplied by 12 of the apostolic completeness, multiplied by 1,000, a number often representing fullness or magnitude. This could indicate completeness and divine order. However, even if symbolic meaning is present, the detailed listing of tribes suggests that the group itself is still rooted in a literal ethnic Jewish identity. Interestingly, the list of tribes differs slightly from traditional Old Testament listings. Dan and Ephraim are not named explicitly, while Levi and Joseph are included. Rather than indicating exclusion or judgment, this variation reflects the fluid way tribal identities are represented throughout Scripture. Ephraim is often encompassed within Joseph, and the total number of tribes remains intact. The emphasis is not on exclusion, but on representation. All the tribes are accounted for within the unity of Israel. Furthermore, Revelation 15:3-4 mentions that those who have conquered the beast are singing the Song of Moses, the servant of God, and the Song of the Lamb. They are not singing the Star-Spangled Banner. They are singing the Song of Moses, a further marker they are Jewish. Lastly, in Ezekiel 47:13 and 48:29, each of the 12 tribes is assigned a clearly defined inheritance of land, often referred to as Ezekiel's land allotment, extending from Dan in the far north to Gad in the far south. This land is arranged in parallel bands running north to south, forming a new geographic structure unlike any previous division of Israel's territory, with a distinct portion designated for each tribe. The key takeaway is this. If the restoration of the 144,000 from the 12 tribes of Israel in Revelation 7:4-8 is understood literally, then Ezekiel's description of the land allotment should likewise be interpreted as a literal fulfillment for the tribes dwelling in the land. Ultimately, the evidence points toward the 144,000 being a set-apart group of Jewish believers in Messiah or Messianic Jews during the last days, functioning as firstfruits of a larger national restoration. They are sealed, protected, devoted, and play a significant role during the tribulation period. Yet they do not represent the entirety of Israel's salvation, nor do they exclude the salvation of Gentiles as clearly shown by the great multitude from every nation. In conclusion, the 144,000 are best understood not as a replacement for Israel, nor as a symbolic abstraction of the church, but as a fulfillment of God's ongoing covenant with his people. They stand as a bridge between the promises of the Old Testament and their ultimate realization in the last days, a testimony that God has not forgotten Israel, and that his redemptive plan is unfolding exactly as he declared. Thank you for watching the Israel Illuminated channel. If you like our channel, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.